Good evening, everyone. After a very warm and windy day across Nebraska, we've now reached storm time. And unfortunately, the severe weather threat is still high for some, but actually pretty low for others. And it all depends on where those storms are going to be firing up. So let me show you the latest high resolution model that we've got. And I'm very concerned still about the central part of the state because it still looks like the potential for some supercell thunderstorms to pop up that could produce some very large hail, some strong winds, and still can't rule out the possibility of a tornado. We're starting at 7 o'clock this evening, and notice those cells popping up with those dark shades of red. Those could be possible severe thunderstorms. So let's just go through in 2-hour increments and track these things for you. Notice how they're going to try and push to the east, but really struggle. The atmosphere a little more stable in the far eastern part of the state. So it looks like when those storms do push to the east, they're probably going to be weakening. That said, we could still see, notice at 9 o'clock, still new storms firing up in the central part of the state. There's 11 o'clock, and notice how the activity kind of hanging out between north-platte, Kearney, Grand Island. But once you get to around Columbus, the atmosphere that's where it's more stable. And so it looks like any storms that try and push into that area will fall apart. Now, after we get past midnight, we're not going to see those supercell storms anymore. They're all going to fizzle out. But what we will see develop in the western central part of the state, somewhere around North Platte, looks like, is a line of storms. Now, with this line of storms, we're not going to be concerned about the largest hail, that golf ball size hail, and those wind gusts possibly up to 70 miles per hour, but could we still see quarter size hail, wind gusts around 60 miles per hour in this line of storms that will be developing? Yes. So the severe threat won't be as high with this line of storms, but it will still be present. So let's track the line of storms now. It's going to be firing up against somewhere around North Platte and then pushing to the east. So notice that we jump ahead to 3 a.m. and that line on the move. Best chance somewhere around Broken Bow, Kearney, and maybe then a little bit later pushing into around Grand Island. But the story of the atmosphere being more stable in the eastern part of the state is still true. So look what happens when we get to 7 a.m. Look how that line really fizzles once again right around Columbus. So I got to say that by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, the severe threat is over. And the remnants of this once, which could be a pretty strong line of storms, could finally get to the Lincoln and Omaha area about 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. But at that point, we're just talking about some isolated showers. By the way, look at the rain-snow mix in the far western part of the state because a big cool down with this cold front. That said, we might see new storms fire up in the late afternoon and evening on Saturday. They could still impact the Lincoln-Omaha area. I'll get to that in just a second. But let's finish up rapping about the severe threat for this evening. In a worst-case scenario, until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, I still can't rule out an EF0 or EF1 tornado popping up, though I think the chance is low. It's not impossible, especially one of those supercell storms that pops up sometime before midnight tonight. But the biggest threat is, again, in those supercell storms, that golf ball size hail and wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. Once we get that line of storms, the hail will probably be smaller, the wind gusts won't be as strong, but still potential for severe storms. So where is this all most likely? Again, we're particularly highlighting the area around North Platte over to Kearney. And those shades of brown and yellow on this map is definitely the greatest threat. The reason why we still have that shade of green around Omaha and Lincoln is if that line were to hold together as it pushes to the east. But I tell you what, we might get an update from the Storm Prediction Center in the next few hours. And they may, based on the latest high-resolution models, even remove Omaha and Lincoln from this marginal risk for severe storms. So I do want to stress, if you live from Columbus east, tonight is looking a lot quieter than what we're going to be seeing if you live to the west of Columbus and up around the Grand Island, Kearney, and particularly North Platte looking like the stormiest place. That said, I do want to mention that for tomorrow, there's still a severe weather threat for Lincoln, Omaha, Beatrice, Fremont, basically all the places where the severe threat is very low tonight. It's a little bit higher for late tomorrow afternoon and during the evening hours. What we're going to see is a new line of storms fire up along the cold front. The problem is it's all going to depend on exactly where that cold front is in the late afternoon and evening hours tomorrow. And I will say there are some models saying that the line of storms is actually going to set up east of Omaha. But there are still some models that say it sets up to the west of Omaha. So that's why Lincoln, Omaha, Fremont, Beatrice are on the edge of this severe weather threat because it's going to depend on where this line of storms fires up. But it's still a possibility for late tomorrow afternoon and evening that line of storms could fire up somewhere right around Columbus and then push in. And if that happens, then we could see quarter-size hail and wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. But if the line sets up to the east of Omaha, then all those threats are going to stay over in Iowa. So we'll be watching that closely as we go through the afternoon hours tomorrow, and I'll give you an update with the latest information.